stone unturned. Leave your fears behind.
Leaving no stone unturned. It's time for truth in matters directly affecting you, America. You have a voice, and it's time to use it. It's time to Speak Now Live with Cheryl Edwards.
And we are back. I'm Cheryl Edwards, and for those of you just joining us, you're listening to Speak Now Live, and our topic today is Medication Nation. Right now, as we speak, America's experiencing the largest epidemic in history, and the majority of people are completely unaware. Prescription drugs are taking the lives of our loved ones. Every once in a while, I'll get invited to share my personal experience, and the first time that I was invited to speak to a women's group at a church, I was very surprised to learn that the majority of women in attendance were either directly or indirectly affected by prescription pill abuse, and that's when I began doing my research, only to find that because these drugs come prescribed by a doctor, they have been able to make their way into homes, schools, churches, and even military bases. We just recently had a U.S. Air Force pilot who was loading up on military-prescribed Dexedrine while he was flying a BY bomber on the Persian Gulf. When he returned home, he went out to dinner with a friend who he began beating in the head. The military is now giving our servicemen antipsychotic medicine. Am I right, Gwen?
That's correct. In fact, if you look into the statistics of the Iraqi and Afghani wars, you will find that more soldiers have died as a result of prescription drug overdose and killing themselves when they come back from the war and are on psychiatric drugs than have actually died in combat.
Amazing.
Now that is very, very frightening to me. And 1 out of 6 of our service members, active duty, are currently on some kind of psychiatric drug. Now, mind you, when they come home and they're on psychiatric drugs, their weapons are taken away from them. They're not allowed to have a gun. However, while they're in, the actual area of war, they are armed and on these psychiatric drugs and fighting side by side with other soldiers.
That's terrible. I can't imagine.
It is terrible. But people are saying, well, they have post-traumatic stress disorder. They need these drugs. However, again, and I'm not saying I'm anti-drugs, but these drugs have not been proven to be effective in post-traumatic stress disorder. They're using them as a quick fix to numb people's emotions out. And when those emotions come back, they're coming back with a vengeance, and they're not able to handle them.
This makes me think of the side effects you commonly see on drugs, and that is agitation. Pay close attention to that warning.
Well, agitation is a side effect that's very common with any kind of withdrawal from a drug, be it, a psychiatric drug or be it a painkiller. But agitation is also one of the most common side effects of antidepressant drugs and stimulant drugs. About 25% of the people who take them will become agitated. Is the concern probably because agitation being such a huge side effect of psychiatric drugs, this is part of the reason why we're seeing so many school shootings.
Yes.
It's another part of the reason that we see so many suicide, homicides combined. And many times, they will talk about the person was depressed or the person was getting divorced, and you'll see some glimpse or hint to the fact that there was medical treatment. But you don't really do or find out about that information until you do due diligence down the road and you look into it, many reports later, and then you find out that, that husband that killed the 4 children, the dog, and his wife, and then tried to kill himself was actually being treated with antidepressants because he'd lost his job or whatnot. But they always, the media, when I say they, the media always focuses on, it was the bullies at school, or it was this or that, or she should have been treated with psychiatric drugs and she was not taking her medication. And you'll hear that very frequently as the argument. They should have been on drugs. Well, quite frankly, that sometimes is what precipitated the event, because they become agitated or they become psychotic when they withdraw too quickly from the drugs, and that just causes, a downward spiral in their behavior and in their mental status. And so they become suicidal, they become homicidal, they become psychotic, extremely, deranged, and then later on, the patients will come out of it and tell you they have no memory whatsoever. They were almost in a sleep state when they were doing what they were doing. We just had another one here in Austin just 2 nights ago. So I'm always listening to this on the news, and I'm always aware. The first thing that I think of is wonder what kind of drugs they were taking.
Gwen, right now there's a mom listening, and she had her child on antidepressants or any drug for that matter. What advice would you give parents today?
The new addict's profile is not a person that has, a questionable moral character, and that's what we have, historically thought about drug addicts as being the person that shoots up, the person that snorts this or does that. Your new profile for a prescription drug addict is your popular student that is very well liked, that may never think about drinking, or may never think about smoking pot, may never think about doing anything else that's illicit, but they think because drugs are prescribed by a doctor that they're safe. These are students, these are the most commonly abused drugs on our college campuses as well as in our high schools and middle schools. People are sharing their ADHD drugs with their friends. They have pill parties that they call Skittles parties.
Farm parties.
Folks, that you need to listen to what they do. They take prescription drugs and they put them in a bowl and share prescription drugs at a party and then drink. And this is how many of our youth are dying of overdoses, because once they consume alcohol in conjunction with a prescription drug that they weren't prescribed, so you have no idea what they're taking, it's potentiated by the alcohol, and they go to bed and they never wake up.
Amazing. So sad.
This is particularly happening with OxyContin quite frequently.
OxyContin has taken so many young lives, that's for sure. OxyContin is a very popular one.
Yes, it is. One that we're losing a lot of our youth to.
Now, I know that you're not about conspiracy theory, Gwen.
Not about conspiracy theory, Cheryl, because I can prove everything that I say.
Doesn't it feel like there's something strange going on?
Something very strange going on.
I personally have to ask what got us here. I mean, is it an accident that we find ourselves in a day when the livelihood of so many depends on whether or not they have a pill?
Okay, well, let me just say something, and this is from my own personal belief system. What I'm doing is a spiritual calling. I am speaking out because I have a moral conscience that will not allow me, based on what I have experienced and what I observed within the industry and what I participated in, to not speak out, to not tell people what's happening. Is there something weird going on? Absolutely. Why would antipsychotic drugs be the number one drug for 3 years running? Why not diabetes drugs? Why not heart medication drugs? Why not drugs of another nature? Because, we have cancer, right, that's killing people right and left. You would think that cancer treatments would be the number one.
Oh, most certainly.
You would think that something for obesity would be number one. But no, I want people to just think with critical intelligence. Why are antidepressants, even though they have been proven to be no more effective than placebo? And I want to repeat that. The meta-analyses of all of the clinical data submitted for antidepressants over the years has proven more than once by more than one group of researchers that these drugs are not effective, but yet they're still in the top 10 prescribed drugs. The reason for this is if we are disconnected from our emotions, we have a spiritual disconnect. We lose our natural guidance system. We cease to know right from wrong, up from down, in from out. We don't ask the right questions, and we lose all that we need in order to live a spiritually full, happy, and prosperous life. And that is being taken from us. It's being stolen from our children, and we need to take our power back. If we are on antipsychotics, if we are on antidepressants, if we are on anxiolytics, we are disconnected spiritually. Yes. We have no guidance system.
Yes. We have to take a break to hear more from our sponsors. You're listening to Speak Now. More with Gwen Olsen, author of Confessions of an RX Drug Pusher, when we come back.
Leave no stone unturned. Leave your fears behind.
You've been listening to Speak Now Live with your host, Cheryl Edwards. All views and opinions expressed on this show do not reflect the views of this station. For further insight and a recap of today's show, visit speaknowradio.com. Speak Now Live with Cheryl Edwards, Saturdays at 1 on WFEN.